Excellent. So welcome everyone to the June 30th, 2021 Tribal Transportation Working Group meeting. I'm Colleen Clemenson, and I am the Director of Regional Planning at SANDAG. I co-chair this working group with Chairwoman Erica Pinto, and she is delayed for a few minutes and asked that we start the meeting, and we will let everyone know as soon as she arrives. As we begin here, I want to ask our excellent clerk, Avelia Castellanos, to confirm we have a quorum. So Jane says we have a quorum. Avelia, do we have a quorum?
We do have a quorum, Co-Chair Clemenson.
Yay, thank you. Okay, I'd like to review the process for both the working group members as well as any members of the public who wish to speak under public comment. For working group members, when you'd like to speak, click the raised hand icon in the Zoom control panel. You have control of your video and mute, so please turn on your camera when you'd like to speak, and that will allow me to see you to call on you. If you're representing your tribe today, if you can rename yourself by adding the abbreviated name of your tribe to your Zoom label, it really helps us with the roll call. It helps us with voting, and also just nice to know where it is that you are, who you're representing. So, and as we go through this, the clerk can answer any questions on our meeting procedures. So Avelia, can you provide a quick reminder of how the public comments will work today? Avelia, are you on?
I am. As noted on the cover page of today's meeting agenda, in addition to emailed comments, the public also may provide live comments during today's meeting. To provide a live verbal comment during the meeting, please join the Zoom meeting either by computer or phone. At the time of the public comments, members of the public are advised to raise hand. If you wish to provide comments, the raise hand feature can be found on the Zoom toolbar for those who are joining via computer or by entering *9. For those joining via telephone only, the chair will call on members or the co-chair of the public by name of those joining via computer and by the last 3 digits of your telephone number. Those joining via telephone, all comments received prior to the close of the meeting will be made part of the meeting record. The instructions for providing live comments also are on the bottom of the cover page of today's meeting agenda, which can be accessed from the homepage of SANDAG's website at www.sandag.org. Comments made in the chat are not considered public comments, so please state your comments out loud.
Okay, great. Thank you, Avelia. Hopefully very soon we will be meeting in person and we'll not have to go through all these instructions about virtual meetings, but at least for now, this is the way we operate. So welcome to this virtual meeting of the Interagency Technical Working Group on Tribal Transportation Issues. We can now say that this hopefully is the last time we'll meet virtually. At this time, I would like to ask Chairman Welch of the Barona tribe, if he would be so kind as to lead us in a blessing today.
Thank you. Grandfather, we thank you for this day. For this time we get to spend together discussing transportation issues and bettering our communities. We pray for good words, understanding, and fellowship. Oyeye yiahan, amayaha, iyayahan, ichpe.
Thank you, Chairman Welch. Truly an honor to have you provide that blessing for us today. So thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now I'd like to take this opportunity for our tribal working group members to each introduce themselves. And maybe we will just, shall we start with you, Chairman Welch? Are you muted?
Yeah, I'm muted. Let me try that again. I'm Chairman Welch with Ray Welch of the Barona Band of Mission Indians.
Welcome. Thanks for joining us. Next, should we go to Andrew?
Sure. Good morning, everyone. Welcome. My name is Andrew Orozco. I'm the planning director for the San Pasqual Band of Indians.
Wonderful. And it looks like the chairwoman has joined us. Welcome.
Alka, I apologize for my tardiness. I'm here at the wellness conference at Southern Indian Health Council, and I just gave some open remarks as the chair of the board here at Southern, but I'm happy to be here. Where are we at with introductions? So I heard Chairman Welch.
You're the third member to introduce themselves.
Oh, okay. Take it away, Colleen. Okay, my name is Erica Pinto, chairwoman of the Hamul Indian Village, and also the co-chair of the technical working group. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning. Other representatives want to turn your cameras on and introduce yourselves.
Let's see those pretty faces.
Yes. How about Ray? Ray Tehran, and then I see
Good morning. This is Ray Tehran with Viejos Tribal Government. I haven't paid my dues to the Screen Actors Guild, so I can't be shown on camera.
Good one. How about Shasta next?
Good morning, Shasta Gon, Environmental Director and Tribal Historic Preservation Officer for the Paula Band of Mission Indians.
Great. And then we have a special guest, Chairman Grubb.
Chairman Gruby.
Gruby, Chairman Gruby.
Yeah, Chairman Gruby here for the Agua Caliente. Good to be here, see all the other tribal leaders and see what you guys are doing and what this is all about.
Wonderful. We're so happy to have you here. How about Jeremy from Paula?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, there we go.
There you are.
Hi, Jeremy, Natural Resource Planner at Paula.
Wonderful. Welcome. Are there other tribal members that I have left out? I'm skimming through here. I think we have Shayla.
I'm muted.
Hello there. Let me see if we can make this work. Okay, let's try that now. Hi, Shayla Alvarez with the Barona Band of Mission Indians. I handle government affairs for the tribe. Nice to see y'all.
Wonderful.
Good to see
Anyone
you.
else representing a tribe that I have not called on? And then we can go to our agency representatives.
Carla Rodriguez with La Jolla.
Wonderful to have you. Welcome.
Thank you.
And I see that Michael Connolly is also on as well.
Oh, there we go. Michael.
Good morning, Michael Connolly. I'm the SCTCA liaison to Sandag.
Wonderful. Nice to have you, Michael. Good to see you. All right. So with that, let's see. We'll start with the BIA. We have Leonard.
He's there, but I don't, yeah, he's on panelist.
I know we have Leonard and Felix Kiddo.
And Felix. Felix, are you there to introduce yourself?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yep.
I'm Felix Kiddo. I'm the Acting Deputy Regional Director for Indian Services. I do know Leonard planned to be on, so I imagine we'll be hearing from him.
Very good. Okay. Thanks, Felix. Thanks for being here. And then let's see. I think I saw County of San Diego.
Mm-hmm.
I'm Scott Chrisman. I'm with Planning and Development Services, but am the interim tribal liaison. And
Wonderful.
I'm also joined by other county representative Richard Chin.
Great.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Richard. Let's see. Caltrans District 11.
Hi, my name is Rafael Reyes. I'm the Native American liaison for Caltrans District 11.
Great. Thanks for joining us, Rafael. Any other agencies other than Sandag? And now we'll just go through the Sandag staff members. We'll start with Jane, then Tuweri, then Catherine, and then Allison.
Hi, sorry, I'm multitasking here. I'm Jane Clough. I'm the Tribal Working Group Coordinator and Tribal Liaison for Sandag. And I just promoted Matt Rantanen from SCTCA as well.
Hi, Matt Rantanen, Director of Technology, Southern California Tribal Chairmen's Association.
Great, thanks for joining us.
Good morning, Tuweri Fowler with Sandag. I'm the Sustainable Communities Manager.
Good morning, everyone. Catherine Mattel, Regional Planning Intern, working directly under Jane Clough.
Thank you, Catherine. And then is it Allison Wood?
Yes. Hi, good morning. Allison Wood. I'm a Senior Planner and Project Manager for the Regional Plan.
Great. So we've covered all of Sandag. Is there anyone here who has not introduced themselves? We have everybody. Super duper. Okay. So I think at this point, we are going to move on to member and public comments. And Chairwoman Pinto, do you want to take over from here?
I can take over from here. You're doing a fabulous job, though, but please continue to help out. Yes, we're on item 2, which is the member/public comments. Are there any members of the public that would like to make any public comments? Anything in the chat box?
They need to raise their hands.
Please raise your hand.
I see someone, a panelist raising their hands.
Looks like Shasta. So there's no public comment, so we'll go ahead and go on to the working group members and call upon Shasta. Do you have a comment to make?
I do, and I'm sort of observing my raised hand, and because I tried to choose the hand that best approximates my actual skin color, you can't see it. So I'm thank you, Jane, for paying attention to seeing my pale white hand up in the corner of my little box. So I was asked to comment on basically tooting our own horn here in Paula, which I don't really like to do, but we were awarded a Caltrans long range transportation planning grant. And we're excited about that. So because Jane reached out and said, be sure you say something about that. I'm saying something about that. And I have Jeremy on the phone because he's the one who actually wrote the grant application and is responsible for it. So if anybody is interested in speaking with us about that, then Jeremy's the guy to talk to. But just wanted to say thank you to Caltrans and thank you to the working group for your support.
Very good, Shasta. Very good, Jeremy. Well done. Jeremy, do you have comments you want to make? Okay.
No, just wanted to, would just repeat what Shasta said, that, thanks to everybody that helped out. A lot of people in the group helped with the application. So really appreciate it. And look forward to starting.
Awesome. Any other comments before we move on to the next item?
I don't see any hands raised, Chairman Pinto.
Okay, very well. So our next item on the agenda is the approval of the meeting minutes from April 21st, 2021. Hopefully you've had the chance to review those. And if so, may I have a motion to approve the April 21st, 2021 minutes?
I'll move to approve the minutes. This is Shasta.
Thank you, Shasta. So the motion by Paula to approve the meeting minutes of the last working group. Do I hear a second?
Chairwoman San Pasquale will second.
Thank you, San Pasquale. Thank you, Andrew. Further discussion? Okay, this is the time where we conduct the roll call vote. Is that correct, Jane?
Correct.
That is correct.
Okay. Clerk, will you please conduct the roll call vote?
Hamel.
Aye.
Chairman Erica Pinto.
Yes. Aye.
Verona, Chairman Welch,
Aye.
Campo, Gary Conley, is there anyone representing Campo?
No.
Ipari, Vice Chair Mike Garcia,
Leopold's not here. La Jolla is next.
Ipai, Chairman Bernice Pai,
I don't see Chairwoman Pipa on the roster.
La Jolla, Carla Rodriguez,
Here.
La Costa, James Hill,
Paula.
Aye.
San Pascual.
Aye.
Viejas.
Yes, aye.
And that's it.
Antonita, Lisa Hall,
I think we went through. I think we have everybody.
Okay, so that carries with all those who are present. Appreciate that. So after every item, we always offer public comments or working group member comments. Are there any comments that any working group member has to make after this approval? Questions? Raise your hand and turn your camera on. If none, we can move on to the next item. You see any hands raised?
there are no hands raised. Chairman Pinto.
Okay, thank you so much. So then we'll move on to item number 4. This is our co-chairs report. Happy Pride Month, everybody. As you can see, there are many agencies, both state and there's many organizations that are celebrating Pride and making their logo into the Pride flag colors. So that's very, very cool to see how far we've come as a people. Also, one of the things I want to report on is National City to the south of San Diego has raised the Kumeyaay flag. The City Council for National City has voted to raise the Kumeyaay flag for the entire month of November, which is so awesome. It's a historic thing for National City to do this, first time ever. Also, we've been working with Chula Vista City Council and the removal of statues and changing of names of schools. You know, for example, Father Junipero Serra High School has now changed to Canyon Hills High School. So there's just a momentum going in the atmosphere that we could feel that, you know, these outdated names and these outdated things are being changed to reflect who we are as people. And these are good strides that we're making as a people. So I'm very proud to report that. Second of all, or third of all, the County of San Diego has also rescinded some outdated policies. I think maybe some of you have seen in the news, outdated policies as it relates to land in a trust. And so the county will no longer oppose any lands in the trust and will take each land in the trust by case. And that's a wonderful thing for tribes who are expanding their land base, and it makes it really easier to get support by the county. Also, the county will put in their 2022 budget a tribal liaison position. We don't know who that's going to be. I understand that, Scott, you are the interim tribal liaison. Good to know that. And things are moving right along. As a NAC chair also, the director, Tokes Amashaken, he has also committed to changing the names of bridges and roadways that are named after people who have not done such great things in the past, or have done terrible things, to be honest. So it's a commitment, it's a momentum going all around us. It's wonderful to see. It's good to be part of this momentum. Fourth of all, the last thing I'll report on is the Native American Advisory Committee, also called the NAC, is continuing to make strides in the subcommittee that was established. It's relating to cultural monitoring. We've have about 30 tribal nations that have their TIPOs or their tribal representatives or their historic people that are participating in this. So that's always open for any member of this committee to participate in. We've met a handful of times, about 5 times since October, I believe, but things are moving along, and I'm just very proud to be in this position and to see these things happening in various jurisdictions, and just makes me feel proud and honored. Also, the fifth thing, I was just reelected as a tribal chair for Hamul Indian Village. So I like to tell everybody, you're stuck with me for another 4 years. And I'm just thrilled and honored to be able to represent my people in the best way that I can. So with that, I'll turn it over to Colleen for her co-chair report. Thank you.
Wait, I'm gonna bust in with the whoop whoop on the re-election.
Yeah, congratulations. Congratulations, that's great. And thanks for all the work you're doing too. Really, it's amazing. I just have a couple of things to report. That Sandag is really pleased that we're celebrating the completion of the Mid-Coast Extension, the blue line up to UC San Diego. This is the biggest construction project in the region possibly ever, $2.1 billion. And this will now connect downtown San Diego up to UC San Diego, which means we can go from the border to UC San Diego in a 1-seat ride. So really exciting. The first test train went out yesterday morning. I'm planning to get our whole Sandag team out on one of the test trains, and hopefully we can do that with members too of the tribes that want to do that before we have the official opening, which will be near the end of this calendar year. So really exciting for our whole region. It's provided major employment for multiple people, especially during this pandemic. And I just want to take a minute to also say that this is a great example of the region getting work done. We have the half-cent sales tax here that paid for half of it, and we were able to get a federal grant to pay for the other half. And I also think it's a really good example of where we had, cultural experts on site at all times. We did come across some sensitive resources throughout the process, and my sense is that that was handled really well. And the project ended up finishing earlier than we had expected and within budget, in fact, slightly under budget. So really pleased for everyone in the whole region to be able to experience this brand new piece of infrastructure. And then I also wanted to mention that the governments of California and Mexico signed an agreement this week reinforcing our mutual commitment to support of the Otay Mesa, Mesa de Otay 2 port of entry project. So this is a major cross-border infrastructure project that will greatly expand our capacity along the busiest border region. I think where we are right now, it was great to have this signing, because when you look at what's happening down there, everything's happening on the US side. We need to make sure that our partners on the other side are also, in full agreement so that this really works. And I also wanted to just share with this group here, I had the opportunity last Friday to meet with the mayor of Tijuana. And it was just, she's in that role on an interim basis until the next election happens. So I think it's maybe 4 more months. But one of the things that she shared that really made me think about the tribes as well is this like binational family that we all are, and how many of us have family on both sides of the border, and you go to school maybe in Tijuana for grammar school, and then maybe you're in high school in San Ysidro, and she has relatives in Rancho Bernardo. And I think the same thing with our tribes. You know, we're really such a binational, international community here in the San Diego region, and it's just an amazing landscape that we all share. So anyway, that's what I had to report today. I'm really looking forward to our discussion with you on the draft regional plan. Unless there's anything else on item 4, I'm happy to kick off item 5 and move right along. Does that work for you, co-chair? Good.
Yes, let's do
Yeah.
it.
So I just wanted to mention in this group here, Chair Pinto, how much I appreciated the comments that you made at the board meeting as we were talking about the release of the regional plan, and your comments about how important it is to have the tribal voice here. And you also, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you expressed that you felt we had really had meaningful input in the process, and that tribes truly feel included. And I tell you, of all the comments I heard from our board members, and I texted this to you as well, I mean, that warmed my heart beyond belief, and it made me so happy. So anyway, I wanted to share that with you, and just to make sure everyone knows here how well they are represented with your voice at the table. And you use every opportunity to remind our elected leaders around the table about the tribal voice. And I just think that's really spectacular. You're really showing that strong leadership. So again, so glad you've been reelected to your post.
I appreciate that, Colleen. I thought it was the self-care comment, to be honest.
Well, no, I love that too. I also had to say that because at the end of that presentation, I actually was it had been so much work, I came to tears. And then when you had said we need self-care, I'm like, yes, this weekend is self-care. Okay, very good. So with that, I'm really pleased to introduce two outstanding SANDAG staff team members, Tuere Faola and Allison Wood, who will provide you an overview of the plan, but we really want to focus in on the region's unincorporated area and what we believe is in the plan to support tribal nations. And so we're really looking for that input from you. If there's something missing that we haven't included, or we're not describing these things correctly, this is our time to really have that conversation. And so if you'd like to offer any comments or questions once they go through the presentation, then we'll ask you again to turn on your cameras and give us your thoughts, give us your input. So with that, I'm turning it over to Tuere.
Thank you, Colleen. And actually, Allison is going to kick our presentation off, and I'm going to go through some of the projects. And so we'll be pretty fluid. Yeah.
Super.
All right. So I will share my screen here. All right, one moment. There we go. Can you all see my screen now? Okay, great. All right. Thank you, Colleen and Tuere. I'm really happy to be here today to go through our draft 2021 regional plan. As Tuere mentioned, I'll kick things off today, and then I'll hand things over to Tuere to go through some of the specific projects in the unincorporated and tribal land parts of our region. So we've been working with you on this plan for more than 3 years now. So these are just a few of the key milestones that where we've connected over the last 3 years during the Tribal Summit, several symposiums and workshops, really to ensure that your priorities and all the work that you've been working on in the tribal nations are reflected within our plan. And just a few photos to kind of remind us of these times before COVID, when we were able to meet together and exchange ideas with you and really incorporate your feedback into the regional plan. And specifically, the October 2019 Tribal Transportation Workshop stands out as one of those key workshops to really integrate those recommendations from the ITTS into the development of the network and how the 5 big moves can benefit the tribal nations. So throughout this process, we've focused on gathering this type of input from our communities and hearing about the variety of issues that are important to the residents of this region. And one of the things we hear time and time again is that transit is not convenient and that it's not fast enough or frequent enough, and it doesn't connect people with where they need to go. We also hear a lot about roadway safety, that people do not feel safe on our streets, especially if they're walking or biking. And we know that throughout the US, 25,000 people are killed while walking between 2016 and 2019. In our region, most people drive alone to work because they lack an alternative to driving, and this worsens traffic on our roadways. And we've also heard that many residents are concerned about our environment, and driving is the primary contributor to greenhouse gas emissions that lead to climate change. And we're already seeing impacts of climate change in our region and expecting things to get worse. We know that sea levels will continue to rise. We know that wildfires, heat waves, and droughts will be more common. We've seen a lot of that just this week in all parts of our West Coast. So these issues are not really new. They're reflected in the 3 biggest challenges that we feel we need to overcome as a region. And they include addressing congestion, improving social equity, and meeting state and federal environmental laws. And some of these state laws are new, and one of the most important things that we have to keep in mind when developing the regional plan. So this slide really summarizes the state and federal laws related to the environment, environmental justice, our tribal consultation requirements as well. But one of the big takeaways here is related to greenhouse gases, and that we must meet our 19% per person reduction by 2035. And to do that, we need a reimagined transportation system that truly provides options. So with all that in mind, we outlined a vision for a complete transportation system that serves the entire region, one that is faster, fairer, and cleaner, and can help our communities be resilient to a changing climate. And we want to create a system that connects everyone to the people and the places that they care about quickly, safely, and conveniently. We want to expand access across the region, opening up transportation choices to every person in our community and advancing our social equity goals. And we want to preserve our quality of life and the environment that we all love, making the air cleaner and reducing emissions. And we can imagine a brighter future for our region. So throughout the development of the plan, you've heard a lot about the 5 big moves. So these are the 5 core strategies that together come together to make the transportation system in the 2021 regional plan. These include complete corridors, transit leap, mobility hubs, flexible fleets, and the next operating system. So we're planning out to the year 2050 in this plan. And I think we can all imagine how much things will change in 30 years. In terms of population, we're expecting 400,000 more people, and this will require more housing and lead to more job growth in the region. As we put this plan together, we use data in a new way to really help us understand the transportation needs of the region. I think many of you have become familiar with these maps as well, where we looked at where people live, where people work. We looked at the connections between the two. We considered more than where people live and work as well. We looked at our tribal nations. We looked at recreation centers, other destinations in the region to ensure that our transportation solutions really meet the different needs of communities across the region. So what does this reimagined transportation system look like? I'm going to go through the regional system here, and then, as I mentioned before, Tueri will really hone in on some of the specific projects that would be of most interest to this group. So we start with the mobility hubs, and these are the areas where most people live and work today. And in these areas, you'd be able to easily access transit or other flexible fleets to complete those short trips. Local bus service services many communities, and we are including more frequent service in this plan. With the complete corridors, we imagine a fully connected system of managed lanes on our highways, similar to what we have on Interstate 15 today. And these would have options for people to use transit or rideshare or pay a charge to use them when they're driving alone. And our complete corridors also include the critical improvements on our rural corridors that Tori will talk a bit more about. Our next generation rapid buses would make use of those managed lanes as a fast, convenient transit option in many communities. And many of these rapid improvements are prioritized early in the plan, since we can implement them relatively quickly. Another layer here is our light rail system. So this is the trolley and the Sprinter mid-coast trolley that Colleen just spoke about. And we imagine even more frequent trains and longer hours of service on these systems. And then finally, commuter rail. These are fast trains that travel below ground in tunnels or above ground, providing quick connections between those highest demand job and population popular destinations. So I think many of us have experienced transportation systems like this in other parts of the world. We don't have it in our region today, but it would be truly, truly amazing to have a system like this in the San Diego region. So this plan delivers on the goals that I described earlier. So I'll go through just a few highlights. Most importantly, we meet all of the state and federal requirements, including meeting that greenhouse gas reduction target. So how does this plan address the worst traffic during commute hours? We really are envisioning a transportation system that makes it easy to grab a flexible fleet or hop on a bus or a train with a reasonable travel time to work. So our computer modeling has shown that by 2035, the amount of people driving alone would decrease, more people would use transit to get to work, and this trend continues out to 2050 as well. So allowing for more choices like this can help ease the traffic on our roadways and reduce emissions. Right now, owning a car is expensive, and we know transit just takes too long or doesn't work for most people. Particularly in this plan, we look closely at transit access for people with low incomes, people of color, and seniors. And for all of these populations, the percent of people living within a half-mile transit increases threefold. And living closer to transit really makes it a convenient option for traveling around our region. And with the addition of flexible fleets, that allows transit to reach even further into communities. So at this point, I'm going to hand things over to Tueri to go through some more detail on our rural communities.
Thank you, Allison. So good morning, everyone. It's good to be with you here virtually, and hopefully, as many of you have already said, we'll be in person next time we have these presentations. But I'm going to walk through a lot of the infrastructure projects that are planned for our tribal lands and our unincorporated county that are going to serve that part of our region. One thing I wanted to point out as I start going through it, because it's a lot of projects to cover and things. All of the projects that I'm going to be talking about are part of Appendix A within the draft 2021 regional plan. And specifically, if you look at page A39, that is where the rural corridors are identified. And that is predominantly most of the projects that I'm going to be talking about. So I just wanted to set the stage that if you want to dive into it a little bit later on your own, that is the place to look in Appendix A. But just to start out and set the stage, when we look at the unincorporated region and our tribal lands, we realize that San Diego is such a special place. 2/3 of our region is made up of the rural areas. And so that's a large part of our county. And we all know that we're home to 17 federally recognized tribal governments with 18 reservations. And that is the most in any county in the United States. So, I mean, that is incredibly special for what we have here in our region. The unincorporated and rural parts of our region also has the port of entry at Tecate. It's a vital contributor to our region's binational economy and the movement of goods throughout our region. And then a fact that I learned and looking at how special kind of our San Diego region is that in the unincorporated part of the county, we have over 360 certified organic farms. And that's more than any other place in the nation or any other county in the nation. So that's really impressive and just goes to explain how special our rural parts of the county are. It's also home to Anza Borrego State Park, Cleveland National Forest, which offers a lot of recreational activities. And it's also known to be a haven for many of the protected wildlife and plants. And these are just a couple of the things that makes the rural parts of our county so special. And that's why with the development of the draft 2021 regional plan, we sought to create a balance of transportation projects and programs that would protect as well as preserve our rural areas and our tribal lands, while also noting the importance of improving access and safety for the residents and visitors. And I'm going to go through the projects, but because it is such a large area, as you can see highlighted here on this map, I'm going to start from north and talking about those corridors, and then we're going to move further south, and then we'll tie it all together talking about the technology improvements. Allison will talk to you about the policies and programs that really make this an integrated system for the rural areas and a system that really connects us all and gives us transportation options. So next slide. So you'll notice in the plan that there are 3 phase years, 2025, 2035, and 2050. And I'm going to try and highlight for you the projects. Many of them are taken directly from the intra-regional tribal transportation strategy. And so we greatly appreciate all the effort that went into developing that, because it directly fed into the development of the draft 2021 regional plan. And so starting with these northern corridors, you can see here on the map the existing projects that are within reach of the rural residents. Currently, the only transportation options besides driving alone is for someone to drive to Escondido to access transit or the Interstate 15 express lane. So not a lot of options there for you today in terms of transportation. By 2025, we will have implemented smart intersection technology improvements along State Route 76, 78, as well as 79, as you can see in the green, and the local roads that are shown in gold in the map here. And these technology investments are critical to support the additional investments that are planned for these corridors as we start to move forward. And a smart intersection system, I should probably describe what that is for you. It allows us to process data for traffic signal controllers, sensors, or connected vehicles to monitor and adjust the current operations. And with this technology, we can improve travel times for vehicles and goods movement, reduce stop and go conditions, which we all experience, and create a safer environment at local intersections. And I think that's one of the true benefits of the smart sensor technology, is it really can create that safer environment for people who walk or people who bike. And the sensors can provide data for us on collisions or even those near misses, so that unsafe intersections can be identified for future improvements. You can also see the addition in this map here of a mobility hub in Escondido, and this is planned to be supported by flexible fleets. You may be familiar with things such as the ride sharing services, which really start to improve access and provide better mobility options for those in our rural parts of the county. And even though we're showing the pink area here, the benefits of that really reach and extend far beyond that little pink blob you see in the map. But then by 2035, we will have implemented the full set of the technology improvements, such as dynamic lane assignment, speed harmonization, real-time traveler information, or even dynamic routing. And these new tools on each of the corridors that are highlighted here, they'll allow us to manage, to monitor, and to respond to changing traffic demands, but also to implement safety features along each of these corridors. And by 2035, you'll start to notice several familiar projects that are the ones that the tribes identified as transportation solutions that are needed to improve access for employees, residents, and visitors alike. And this includes straightening curves and other facility improvements on State Route 76 between Rice Canyon Road and the Paula Reservation, intersection improvements. You can see the green dots that are popping up here on the map on State Route 76 at Coal Grade Road and Poma Reservation Road. And then State Route 79 will also see intersection improvements at Schoolhouse Canyon Road. Then by 2050, even more improvements will be planned for State Route 76, and this includes a new facility improvements on State Route 76 between State Route 79 and Valley Center Road, curve straightening between Harold's Road and Palmer Rancho Road, and additional shoulder widenings between the western and easternmost boundary of the reservations, and then intersection improvements at Paula Mission Road. So State Route 79 also has shoulder widening improvements that are planned between Deer Canyon Road and San Felipe Road. So it's a lot here, but all of these improvements are providing better and safer access to the urban parts of the county. So those who are traveling from rural to urban, this is safer access for them, and providing connections to jobs, shopping, medical facilities, and most importantly, helping with evacuations for fire-prone areas, as Allison talked about earlier. And by 2050, there's also going to be the full system of managed lanes. You can't see that all on this map here, but that will be completed. And this includes managed lanes on State Route 78, all of Interstate 15, so not just the one segment, but the full corridor of Interstate 15. And there will be new transit options, such as the next generation rapid services that will be available, as well as the full investments in the mobility hubs and flexible fleets, really giving those in our rural county residents true travel options to connect to any other part of the county, whether you choose to drive, to take transit, or to carpool or use a rideshare service. So that's our northern corridors. I'm now going to talk a little bit about all of the corridors in the southern part and walk through those exact 3 phase years, 2025, 2035, and 2050. So here is the existing transportation options for those corridors in the south part of our rural part of the county. And as you can see here on the map, you know, there's an existing light rail line that connects Santee. There's Interstate 15 express lanes, the one portion that is there, that end just north of State Route 52, as the options that if you're driving out of the rural parts of our county, these are the options for you to connect within the urban part of our system. But as I said earlier, by 2025, there's technology investments for smart intersections that can allow those smart sensors to detect people who walk or bike at intersections for the local roads that are shown in gold. And then we also start to have some of those technology investments for the rural corridors that are shown in green here. And similar to what I talked about for the northern corridors, you start to begin to see mobility hub and flexible fleet investments, with the closest one probably being the El Cajon mobility hub, which is a gateway hub that we call within the plan. And these investments are starting in 2025, which can begin to really, again, expand the reach and accessibility of our existing transit system, particularly for those who are transit dependent and for the underserved communities, which includes people of color, seniors, and those with limited incomes. And I know many of you have probably been involved in the various studies that are ongoing for State Route 67. You know, we know this corridor is critical for emergency evacuations and first responders. And if you've been following the county or Sandag's board meetings, you may have noticed that there's an existing project that will begin this summer that's being completed in partnership with Sandag, Caltrans, and the County of San Diego. And it'll incorporate 18 miles of fiber between Lakeside and Ramona. And this broadband connectivity is really needed for technology solutions that we've proposed to improve operations, improve traffic flow, as well as improving safety. And also adding fiber begins to close the digital divide gap and expands access for affordable high-speed internet services in these communities. By 2035, all of the corridors shown in green will have completed the necessary technology improvements that allow us to monitor and manage the demands, as well as improve safety along these corridors. And again, the improvements that we're talking about for the corridors shown in green here are dynamic lane assignment, speed harmonization, and real-time traveler information. State Route 67, you know, this is a corridor that's getting a lot of study and attention, and it's being studied by Sandag and Caltrans as part of the San Vicente Comprehensive Multimodal Corridor Study. It's a mouthful, but it'll see shoulder widening and straightening between Maple View and Dye Road as part of the draft 2021 regional plan. And Interstate 8 at West Willows Road interchange will be improved, as well as State Route 94 at Melody Road will have intersection improvements. And we know that both of these corridors are, you know, very important for goods movement throughout our region, as well as improving access to the tribal lands. And then more infrastructure is planned here for 2050. If you can start to see some of the green layering on top of the green, there will be intersection improvements on State Route 78 between Deer Canyon Road and Santa Isabel, and shoulder widening and straightening on State Route 94 between the Humol Reservation and Tecate Road. And then another intersection improvement or interchange improvement on the Interstate 8 corridor at East Willows Road, and new on-street active transportation project along the corridor between Lake Jennings Road and State Route 79. So that's a lot of projects, but again, these are coming directly from the ITTS, and they are found in the rural corridors, Appendix A-39 is where you can find that. So the next couple of slides, I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about those technology investments, because you've heard me say a lot about technology. And, automobile crashes, we know, are the third leading cause of death for people between the ages of 15 and 44. In rural areas, the number of annual deaths is disproportionately higher than in urban areas. And so the technology improvements that I previously mentioned on all of the corridors you can see here in green on this map begin to help us address the safety issues. And we know that technology is rapidly changing and advancing, and it's changing how people communicate and how we travel. And so the intelligent transportation system investments that we're making on these corridors can help us to address safety, localized congestion that is experienced on these rural corridors and in rural communities, particularly in areas where infrastructure modifications may not really be feasible. And so all of the rural corridors in this slide are slated for advanced technology solutions that address the unique challenges faced in rural environments, such as evacuation, emergency response team, even extreme weather events, or seasonal time of day congestion that can overwhelm our roadways. So with all of the technology improvements that would be completed by 2035, the first stage of implementation involves expanding the fiber communications backbone along those corridors, like what's happening for the 18 miles of State Route 67. And so fiber, as I said earlier, begins to bring the high-speed broadband connectivity that's needed to operate the intelligent transportation solutions. But it also brings high-speed and more affordable internet access and service to the communities along those corridors. And I know that's particularly important to our tribal nations. And in this next slide, the map shows census blocks in the region where fiber is present. And you can see the map on the right, the areas in our region that have fixed broadband service as it's federally defined. What you see in both of the maps here is that there is a major gap in our rural communities. The technology investments in the 2021 Regional Plan work to expand fiber access, and that is critical for that high-speed connectivity to the underserved communities in our rural county. So once this fiber is in place, a wide range of technology solutions can be deployed to address the common safety issues, improve traffic flow, and facilitate the emergency response and evacuation that I spoke about earlier and that you can see in the images here, from advanced vehicle and driver warning systems to prevent crashes and keep traffic moving, smart intersections that adapt to traffic or emergency response vehicles, and dynamic message signs that tell you when and where to merge lanes. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Allison to talk to you a little bit more about the programs.
Thank you, Tori. So I have just a few more slides here to highlight a few other aspects of this plan. First, on active transportation, wanted to highlight that this plan includes both infrastructure, so some of the roadway improvements that Tori mentioned, but also programs that are really focused on active transportation. So in addition to the bike network, we have investments in complete street makeovers, really focused in mobility hub areas and connecting to mobility hubs. We also have two new programs in this plan. One is focused on Vision Zero, which would include resources and grants for local jurisdictions and tribal nations. And the other is an e-bike incentive program that would be open to all in our region to encourage folks to try e-bikes. And many of the system improvements also support movement of goods. So optimizing our roadways for freight movement, increasing rail capacity, the improvements at our ports of entry, as well as the Next OS, they all support last mile delivery, truck routing, and border wait times as well. And the plan addresses more than transportation. So we have policies and programs to focus growth and development primarily in the mobility hub, more urbanized areas of our region. This is really aligning with our transportation system investments. Other programs that support this in the plan include an affordable housing program. We have climate resilience grants to help our communities be prepared for those climate impacts, as well as a nature-based climate solutions program. So this would fund green infrastructure and help support the preservation of our natural and working lands. Another area for programs are around electric vehicles. So we know in the future, all of our vehicles will be electric or zero emission, but getting there requires a lot of work and partnerships. So we have programs in the plan to incentivize charging and vehicle purchases and support for the transition of other vehicles like buses and fleets so that they're all zero emission vehicles. To complement the transportation system, we also envision strategies that encourage residents to consider options to driving alone to work. So some of these are similar to our iCommute programs that many of you are familiar with, and others are some new programs to encourage sustainable transportation options. We also want to be clear about some of the pricing strategies included in this plan. We've included both value pricing and user fees, and these are strategies that help provide a sustainable funding source and support other goals of the regional plan, such as relieving congestion, improving equity, and reducing greenhouse gas emissions. And these strategies include dynamic tolling on our managed lanes, transit fare subsidies, ride-hailing fees, parking and curb pricing, and a road usage charge. And a key implementation action of this plan is to prepare an in-depth pricing strategy to really work out all the details of how these would be applied in our region. Right now, we have high-level regional plan assumptions, but we know there's going to be a lot more work to refine those and detail how we actually implement them in our region. So pricing strategies are just one of the funding sources that we plan for in this plan. We anticipate a mix of local, state, and federal sources to help us implement this plan. And as we put the plan together, we also consider when funding becomes available between now and 2050. As we prepare the cost estimates for all the projects and programs, we've included all the costs related to capital, operating the system, our local streets and roads, the programs, as well as debt service. So in total, the cost estimate over the full 30 years is $163 billion. So that's our overview of the draft regional plan. We've gone through a lot of information. If you haven't already, I really encourage you to visit sdforward.com to take a look at the draft plan. It's available in Spanish and English. We've made it about 60 pages long. It's much thinner than prior regional plans, hopefully digestible for members of the public as well who aren't as familiar. It's organized around 3 key chapters. The first outlines our vision and goals. Chapter 2 really describes our sustainable communities strategy, includes all of the projects, programs, and policies that help us meet those goals. And then Chapter 3 discusses how we will fund and deliver the projects in the plan. Tueri pointed out some of the key information included in Appendix A. We have 30 appendices to this plan. I know that may seem overwhelming, but we've worked really hard to organize these into digestible sections, and hopefully you're able to easily navigate to a specific appendix to find the information you're looking for. And if you ever have questions, any of you, about you're trying to find a specific data point or analysis or a description, please don't hesitate to reach out to myself, Tueri, anyone on the SANDAG team. We want to help you find the information you're looking for. Finally, I want to just briefly remind you about our interactive map and data viewer. It's available on our website, sdforward.com. You can learn all about the projects included in the draft plan. And right now, the draft plan is out for public review and comment through August 6th. So we invite you or other members of the public to submit comments in a variety of ways. You can submit them through an online form, email, phone, fax, etc. We've hosted 5 open houses, and thank you again, Chairwoman Pinto, for helping us host the County Unincorporated Workshop earlier this month. Tonight we have our final open house. We also have 2 virtual public hearings coming up one with our transportation committee and one with our board of directors in July. So those will be another opportunity for members of the public to attend and provide comments. So finally, a note on our next steps for the plan. The public comment period will close on August 6th. Later this summer, we'll release the draft environmental impact report. We're aiming for August for that to be released. And then throughout the fall, we'll review all of the feedback we've received and then bring back the plan and the EIR to our board at the end of the year to adopt the plan and certify the EIR. So just and one final note before I wrap up, this is my last slide here, but I just wanted to spend 1 minute on our CMCPs, or Comprehensive Multimodal Corridor Plans. These are a plan that really takes that framework that the regional plan has defined and helps to refine the concepts at a more corridor level. So I think many of you have been invited to attend meetings and participate in the CMCP process. So wanted to let you know that these are parallel efforts, very complementary, but these are opportunities to hone in even more specifically on some of the transportation improvements in these corridors. So with that, I will hand things back to Chairwoman Pinto, and Tueri and I are here to answer any questions you may have and hear your feedback on the plan. Thank you.
Appreciate it, Allison, and thank you, Tueri. I'll open it up for member comments. Any working group member have any questions or comments for Tueri or Allison, please raise your hand, turn your camera on. Shasta.
Yes, thank you, Chairwoman. And thank you both for that terrific presentation. I want to say that as a person who is very, very critical of PowerPoint, that is how it should be done. So thank you very much for that, and very comprehensive. Of course, you know, and I joked in the chat, you know, who raise your hand if you plan to be alive in 2050, which of course, just because I'm going to be old and decrepit doesn't mean that we shouldn't be planning for the future. But I noticed that when I saw that one of the biggest priorities we have here in Paula, which is improvements to Paula Mission Road, is in 2050. So, and I realize that the plan is not meant to be an absolute set of prescriptive dates where you say this can only happen 29 years from now. I understand that, but you know, it's a challenge to put together a plan like this with all of these wonderful forward-thinking efforts for managed transportation and flexible ride sharing and all of those things, and at the same time acknowledge that human behavior is full of friction, and the more friction there is, the less likely people are to actually take advantage of these ideas that our organizations come up with to try to reduce our impact. So all of that, which is to say, and I noticed at the end that there was no appendix that's specific to climate change. And it sounds like that it's integrated throughout the plan. So if you could comment on that for me, I would appreciate it, because I think that's one of the biggest issues that needs to be at the forefront of all of our planning efforts.
Sure, I can comment on that. Let me just share my screen briefly here on this list again, so I can point you in a couple areas. First, one thing I want to say about kind of that behavior change aspect. I think that's something we recognize, that there's a lot of behavior change that we need to meet these goals. And one of the things that we fully anticipate is having to try things out, do pilots, see how they work, and adjust as we go. So we update this plan every 4 years to incorporate new thinking, new technology, better understanding of our region and the people. And so I think that's one reason that we're required to update it every 4 years, but also a benefit of kind of having that iterative planning that we do. Specifically to climate, a couple key appendices that I wanted to point out. One is Appendix R is on stormwater and resilience. And that really talks about a lot of the climate adaptation and resilience efforts that are going on in the region and that are included in the plan. Another one is Appendix X, has our greenhouse gas emissions inventory for the region. So we can see how, our targets that we're required to meet for SB 375 are just a subset of transportation. But the inventory looks at the whole pie, so to speak, of emissions. So if you're looking to kind of dig in and understand that piece more, that's a resource. And then finally, Appendix B, our implementation actions, has a couple key sections focused on climate action planning and also on climate adaptation and resilience. So those would be a few areas to really see the programs that we're committing to and sort of the dollar amounts associated and how we intend to implement those. So hopefully that's helpful.
Can I
That
add
helps,
one
thank
more?
you. And I'll just briefly point out that Impala, we got a Caltrans SB1 grant that we are using to develop a transportation specific climate vulnerability assessment and adaptation plan. So I would recommend that to other tribes to try to do the same.
That's excellent news. I just wanted to add one more comment. And so thank you, Shasta, for pointing out the improvement on Paula Mission Road for 2050. One of the things that I probably should have mentioned when I talked about the phase years of the plan, 2025, 35, and 2050, those are just the years in which we identified that the projects would be built by. That's like the end date. There are all the years in between for which then, the projects and programs get, they get programmed into funding. And so while it's shown in our plan as 2050, it could be built earlier than that. So I do want to make sure that I provide that clarification. That's for any of the projects, that are in 2035. It's not that they would only all be built by 2035. It's that they should be built no later than 2035, and the same thing for 2050. So just you making that comment reminded me that I should provide that clarification on the projects.
Thank you. And I'll meet you guys out at that intersection tomorrow so we can get started.
Sounds good.
Do that before you turn 79.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chairwoman.
Any other comments from the working group? Any public comments or questions?
I don't see any hands raised, Chair Pinto.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you again for your presentation.
Thank you very much.
So we'll move on to item number 6, which is the Caltrans and San Diego County updates on projects identified in the Interregional Tribal Transportation Strategy. I'll turn it over to Rafael Reyes, Caltrans District 11 Tribal Liaison, and also Scott Crispin of the county. Gentlemen.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Good morning, everyone. There are 11 roadway projects identified in the ITTS, which are listed as projects that overlap with the county's current capital improvement program and the county's general plan mobility element. There's one project in the north area and 3 in the south that I'd like to provide a quick update on. The first project is located adjacent to the San Pasqual Reservation at the intersection of Lake Wolford Road and Duro Road. San Pasqual was awarded Tribal Transportation Program Safety Funds by the FHWA for a realignment of Duro Road. The intersection was shifted approximately 350 feet east to provide adequate line of sight. Other minor improvements also included a turnout and signage. San Pasqual just completed the project in April of this year. While this was not a county CIP project, county staff did assist San Pasqual in completing permitting and inspections. We also are happy to learn from Andrew Orozco that the intersection improvement has been a huge safety improvement for the San Pasqual community. Next slide, please. Looking towards the south, there are 2 interconnected projects near the Verona Reservation. They are the Ashwood Street, last slide, please. Perfect, thank you. They are the Ashwood Street Corridor Improvement Project and the Willow Road Traffic Signal Project. They are county CIP projects funded with both Transnet funds and funds from the Verona Band. These projects will realign the roadway, include 2 new traffic signals and another signal at the El Capitan High School. The projects will improve pedestrian and vehicular safety on one of the main roadways leading to the Verona Reservation. Currently, 100% design plans have been completed and are in final review. Construction is expected to start in April of next year with a scheduled completion date of April 2024. The last project is near Jamul Indian Village, which is the SR 94 Vista Diego intersection improvement project. Safety improvements were completed as part of the intersection project at SR 94 and Lions Valley Road, which was completed by Jamul Indian Village in coordination with Caltrans. With the intersection improvements, drivers can now more safely navigate the SR 94 intersection at Vista Diego. With that, I'd like to hand it over to Raphael to discuss ITDS projects that Caltrans has been working on.
Thanks, Scott.
Yes, go ahead and go to the next slide. Yeah, so I'll be sharing some information on some shop projects that Caltrans is currently working on, and some projects that we've identified for broadband opportunities. Next slide, please. So we have two shop projects currently underway, one on I-8 and one on SR 94. Next slide, please. Next slide. So the first one, the I-8 project, is a culvert rehabilitation project from Lake Jennings Park Road and Crestwood Crestwood Road. And there's 12 culverts that were identified that needed some work. This project doesn't specifically address any ITTS project, but it has identified 5 culverts in need of rehab on the La Costa Reservation. And this project is scheduled to start construction in October of this year. Next slide, please. The SR 94 project also is proposing to improve drainage at various locations. And this project does have some specific overlap with an ITTS project that was identified as project ID 2B. And that was to address drainage improvement needs on the Campo Reservation. So this project will be taking care of that. And in addition to those culvert rehab activities, we'll also be upgrading curb ramps to ADA standards, replacing roadside signs, adding rumble strip, and lighting upgrades. And in addition to that, I also found out that the project right now, this project is in the project approval environmental document phase. So they are refining the scope, and a couple items have been added that I think also overlap with some of the ITTS needs. There's a 10-foot pedestrian path on SR 94 between Singer Lane to Old Campo Road that's planned. A left turn pocket is also planned to be added on westbound 94 to southbound 188 or Tecate Road. And some vehicle detection stations are also planned for this project. And the last thing, so this, because it is in the project approval phase, we do have a chance to refine the scope a little bit. And I'm looking forward to seeing the ITTS update to see if we can incorporate any new needs that were not known back with the original ITTS. And the construction is scheduled for 2024. So we do have some time to try to refine the scope a little bit and incorporate some new information. Next slide. So the broadband opportunities that we've identified were basically pulled off of the what is it called, the Caltrans Broadband Partnership Opportunity Map. And under the project initiation document layer, there was 3 pavement rehab projects that actually kind of dovetail into the SR 67 effort. And these projects, I think, are a great opportunity to expand that broadband access in these areas. And I know I've been talking to several of the tribes, and I hear you loud and clear, and I've been relaying that message to our management, and I'm glad to say that we have their support. The first two projects were identified on SR 78, and they were kind of back to back. So from on the slide there, you can see that the first one is from West Haverford Road to Magnolia Ave, and then the second one there is from Rancho Island Road to Winola Road. Hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. And those distances are, I have those written down here, over 25 miles of potentially new fiber access. And the third project, next slide, please, is on SR 79. And that is approximately 33 miles of new fiber from Lake Cuyamaca all the way up to Holcomb Village. This is a very ambitious, and I want to temper expectations with the caveats that we need to secure funding and also find willing partners, willing ISPs to partner with us on these projects. But I think the tribes have been very vocal, and I would recommend to keep being vocal, and we will relay those messages to the management and try to get this project completed. These projects I think are all set for the delivery in 2024, but we have some time. The phase of each of these projects are actually also in the they just completed the project initiation document, and now they're entering the project approval environmental document phase. So again, there's some time here, and I think this is a great opportunity. And that's all I had.
Wonderful. Thank you both. This is critical, and I'm happy to see this moving right along, and the support from the management is great as well too. Any public or any member comments first? Let's do member comments first. Are there any questions or comments for Raphael or Scott? Do you see any hands raised? No? What about any public comments? Any public comments or questions?
I don't see any hands raised, Chair Pinto.
Okay. Well, this is a really good segue into the next. Thank you, Raphael, and thank you, Scott. We'll go ahead and move along to item number 7, which is the Tribal Broadband Connectivity Program, which is a grant opportunity. There is funding available for this type of stuff, so we need to get it. Go after it. And here to present at item number 7 is Nick Courtney. Adam Geiser couldn't be here. He wasn't able to join us. And so we have a team from NTIA, which is the National Telecommunications and Information Administration, to provide an overview on the grant opportunities. Nick, are you there?
Hi, Chairwoman. Yes, this is Nicholas Courtney, Kukubasa Oxwell. Can you all hear and see me?
Yes, we can hear and see you. Good to see you again.
It's good to see you, Chairwoman, and thank you all. My name is Nicholas Courtney. I'm a member of the Makah tribe, and this is my second week with NTIA. Previously, I was the Director of Policy for the National Congress of American Indians, and it's great to see some familiar faces and be with you here all today. I believe the person operating the PowerPoint, we have a PowerPoint, so I just want to confirm that that is up. Awesome. So thank you so much, and we'll get started, and we'll have an opportunity for Q&A at the end. As Chairwoman Pinto said, Mr. Adam Geiser was unavailable due to another meeting, but sends his regards and says hello to you all. So we will get started with the Tribal Broadband Connectivity Program. Next slide, please. All right, so again, my name is Nicholas Courtney. We'll also have on our team, we have a tribal team at NTIA, Crystal Hoddaway, Gabriel Montoya are a part of that team. They may be joining their presentation with another tribal organization is running a little bit over. So they may be joining us for the Q&A portion, but we are all broadband program specialists, again, with NTIA. Next slide. So we are thrilled that in the Consolidated Appropriations Act of 2021, it established the Tribal Broadband Connectivity Grant. This was an incredible opportunity for us to address the lack of broadband in Indian country. We know that Indian country, as you all know, lacks broadband, and during the COVID-19 pandemic, that this really inhibited tribes to engage in telehealth services, remote education, and just remote work in general. We know that the Tribal Broadband Connectivity Fund, which established $980 million available for broadband infrastructure deployment projects and adoption and use projects, is not nearly enough to cover the full need to address broadband across Indian country. However, we were thrilled to see this funding come through and hope to see additional funding come through in the next infrastructure project that is currently being discussed in Congress right now. Next slide. So the Tribal Broadband Connectivity Program, again, this is just a quick who, what, and when. The big things that are applicable is that a tribal government, TCUs, the Department of Homelands on behalf of Native Hawaiian communities, as well as Alaska Native corporations and tribal organizations are all eligible to apply for this program. This program is for deployment and adoption of broadband services on tribal lands and for programs that promote the use of broadband to access remote learning, telework, and workforce development. The big thing for this and the big takeaway is that the deadline for this fund, to apply for this fund, is September 1st, 2021. Again, the deadline to get your application in is September 1st, 2021. Next slide. So this goes over eligibility, as I said, entities that are eligible for this, including tribal governments and subsidies of that tribal government. And what we've heard when we say that is, can a tribe and a tribal entity apply for similar funding? And the answer is yes. However, if it's related to infrastructure, one thing that we heard during our consultation was the need for tribal resolutions that from the tribe of which the infrastructure project is going to be going through. And another big thing is that eligible entities, when applying, should not be having duplication in their applications. So for instance, if a tribe applies and a subsidiary, such as a tribal college and university under the same lands, are applying to do similar things, we are going to defer to the tribal government in that sense. So there is ways when we're talking about infrastructure and programming for these multiple entities to apply either separately or together. However, just to ensure that there is no duplication. So if a tribal college is doing programming, or that the tribal government is also not doing that exact same programming. So again, just the duplication in that sense we're looking at. Next slide. So again, it's applicable to all eligible entities. Non-infrastructure projects do not require the tribal government consent in regards to a resolution. However, if it is infrastructure, a tribal resolution is needed for that entity. And that's just to ensure that tribal governments as sovereign entities are aware of the projects that are occurring on their lands and are okay and approve those. Again, the cannot duplicate another eligible entity's request is a big one as well. So it will take some coordination, and that's why we're here. And at the end, we'll talk about some upcoming webinars to discuss these types of things, and some upcoming, some current FAQ documents and some upcoming FAQ documents that we've received. Next slide. So tribal grant programs for eligible lands, this is a big one. So for this, it's because it's tribes, tribal, Native Hawaiians and ANCs, any land located within the boundaries of an Indian tribe reservation, Pueblo or Rancheria, a former reservation within Oklahoma, and then any land not located in the boundaries of an Indian reservation, but the title is held in trust for the benefit of an Indian tribe or individual. And then also any land located within the region established pursuant to the Alaska Native Claims Settlement Act. That doesn't really impact you all, but those areas or communities designated by the Assistant Secretary of Indian Affairs, Mr. Brian Newland, that are near, adjacent, or continuous to a reservation where financial assistance and social services programs are provided because of their status. So again, if those lands are deemed eligible under and by Assistant Secretary Brian Newland within BIA. So we are coordinating with various departments and agencies. So this is just one example of where that occurs. Next slide. So this was something that we heard during our consultation in February. And we're really excited that tribes can self-certify their unserved areas. We know that tribes know, and that often in the past there hasn't been a great job of a complete holistic picture on our end of what underserved means. So this is where we're looking at tribes and giving them the ability in their application to certify their underserved areas, which we were really excited about. One thing though that is needed for that is just providing additional information, explaining how that determination was made. We're not likely to challenge that or anything like that, but it's a good way for us as a federal agency to learn and to see how these are being done in that way. So again, tribal governments are able to self-certify. They just need to explain briefly how that was done in their application. Next slide, please. So again, the application timeline, we were given as a congressional mandate 90 days. So that gives us to September 1st, 2021. Grants can be submitted through grants.gov. They can also be done by mail or electronic mail, and all the dates and times are the same on that, which is 11:59 Pacific time for September 1st, 2021. So again, that's a very important date. We want to ensure that tribes are taking advantage of this fund and tribal organizations and tribal entities. This is, you know, a once in a blue moon opportunity to get this addressed, and we hope to receive more funding soon. But for this 980 million, the deadline is September 1st. Next slide. So funding amounts. So again, it's 980 million for federal assistance. We were required by statute to allocate 3% to the benefit of Native Hawaiians. But everyone that applies due to the need to address equity will allocate 500,000 to each of the federally recognized tribes. So if you just put together an application, and it can be for either the infrastructure or the programming or both, all applications will receive at least 500,000, and that we expect to make awards for infrastructure anywhere from 1 million to 50 million. And then for the projects, 500,000 to 2.5 million. So we really want to see the true need for cost to address the broadband divide within your respected communities. So again, for infrastructure deployment, anywhere from 1 million to 50 million. We're still allowing and encouraging tribes, if it is more than that limit, to put an application in. We know, working and communicating with Congress, that we can then use that number justification when we're speaking with them to put forward, hey, this is the true need for broadband in Indian country. So if it is more than 50 million, you're encouraged and allowed to ask for that, as long as you can justify and explain within your application why it is more than that limit. So those are kind of soft guideposts. They're not hardened in any way for that. But that's some of the funding amounts. And because of the need to address equity, every application that does apply will be receiving at least 500,000 for each of the federally recognized tribes. Next slide. So evaluation and scoring, this is just a simple, just to share with you all. And I'm not sure if the slides have been shared with you all yet. However, we are happy to share a PDF of these slide decks with you. I know that that's a question that's commonly asked. Well, can we share the slide deck? So yes, of course, all of these things can be referenced, and they're also included in our FAQ and our NOFO that was released earlier this month. So for broadband deployment projects, we're looking at the level of need, affordability for grant writers in the room. That shouldn't be of surprise to you. Viability, and then budget and sustainability. Anything that receives over 70 points will be a eligible project to be funded. Anything less than 70 points will be communicating that to those applicants, I'm sorry, to see how they can either strengthen that application in that regard. So we're looking to get over 70. Again, we really want to see tribes be successful in this, and we'll be holding a host of webinars guiding individuals and teams through the application process in the coming month of July, because again, we know the importance of broadband and have seen what not having broadband has done for our communities during this pandemic. Next slide. So again, for non-infrastructure, again, same kind of gig. The purpose and benefits, viability, and budget and sustainability are all things that we're looking at. We really want tribes to not just have a quick fix to broadband, but what is a long-term solution. So when we're thinking about projects and adaptation for workforce development, who and within your proposals, are we thinking about that? Developing workforce opportunities, who is going to maintain these broadband systems in 20 years and to ensure sustainability in that end. We don't want this to be just a quick Band-Aid on an issue. We really want to address the root cause and to put together solid infrastructure that's sustainable for our communities. Next slide. So key requirements, we have 100 days from award to commit these funds. Only 2% of the act for eligible entities are for administrative expenses. Within your application, though, you have a lot of room and an opportunity to explain what those administrative expenses are. And then 1 year completion deadline for digital inclusion, telehealth, education, and telework projects. And then 1 year completion deadline for infrastructure projects. With that said, there are extensions that can be requested. We know that 1 year to deposit and to really build out infrastructure, it's going to be tough, especially with supply chain management, depending on where we are in the country. You all have in California a little bit more accessible materials than, let's say, some of the villages in Alaska, where they're only available to build during certain times of the year even. So in our next slide, please, we'll discuss what that looks like. So again, the Act provides for a 1 year award project from the for the grant fundings. However, extensions can be made, and we'll be going through some process in the coming weeks for what that will look like. But it's just going to be a simple request that the eligible entity, that it shows that they do have a plan to use those grant funds, that the construction project or planning is underway, or there are circumstances that are just out of your control. We know that, especially in California, things like wildfires, it's very hard to build infrastructure when your tribal community is being evacuated, and that there are some things out of all of our controls. So we really, again, want to be a partner in this with our tribal governments and ensure that these projects are being developed. And that really comes, and that deadline does come from legislative language. However, those extensions are available, and we do expect those extensions requests to come in and for us to swiftly and quickly approve those. Next slide. So one thing that we heard during the consultation that happened in February, and that we're all familiar with, is often there's a match requirement for tribal projects like this. And we're really, really excited to share that there is no match or cost sharing requirement for this project. So we hope that will help all tribes across this country be able to utilize these funds and to be able to build infrastructure. You know, the trust responsibility that is owed to tribal nations and tribal governments, you know, isn't a match requirement. It's a trust responsibility, and we saw that and we heard that, and we're appreciative that was expressed during tribal consultation, and we're excited that this administration was supportive of having a no match or cost sharing requirement for these funds. Next slide. So this also, how does this impact funding opportunities and other opportunities? So we really are encouraging applicants to leverage other funds as well. This isn't a duplicative for our tribal colleges and universities. There's also a CMC grant program for tribal broadband projects and things like that. So this really is meant to supplement other funding opportunities and to be used in that way. So it will not impact the eligibility of other opportunities, and we encourage tribes take advantage of any opportunity that they are given and can go after. Next slide. So eligible versus ineligible costs. This can't supplement activities that were previously budgeted or previously implemented, so it's not retroactive. But we can be using it for deploying new or upgrading broadband infrastructure. Right now, we're aiming for entities that are under the 25.3 rate right now for upload and download speed. If an eligible entity can show that, hey, we have 25.3 speed right now, but it's not consistent, or, you know, we have so many users that really bog that down. If they can just express that in their application, you know, what we've been saying is make us tell you no. You know, if you are reading something, we really want to say yes, and it's a really flexible program. And if you can adequately explain, you know, why you need to go beyond 25.3 speed, it's not a definite no from the beginning. We will be prioritizing those who do not have 25.3. But that doesn't mean that we won't fund projects that want to go beyond that, if they can simply explain the need and can justify that. For broadband adaptation and use activities, this is really, again, tribal anchor institutions. How can we provide affordable broadband programming, whether it's subsidizing broadband costs for our tribal citizens, whether it's just increasing digital literacy for our tribal citizens in this, you know, kind of small World Wide Web world that we live in right now. Broadband is so important for so many different reasons for our tribal communities, for economic development, for educational purposes. So it is certainly eligible for that. Again, ineligible activities include those that are duplicative of other things that are already happening right now or that you're applying for. Next slide. So technical assistance, again, we're here to assist you all and want our tribal nations and our tribal entities to be successful in this program. So for programmatic inquiries right now, you can email Adam. He's being on loan to NTIA right now from FirstNet. And any questions that you have can go through him, and he can delegate them out to the appropriate person on our team. Our grants management inquiries, Noah is actually helping us out with that, and it's Miss Nicole Bell. Again, we will have monthly webinars. We've had 2 already on June 16th and 17th that you can find recordings of those online. And then we'll also be having webinars on the 21st and the 22nd of July coming up. And we will certainly share that information with you, Chairwoman Pinto, and anyone on this call. We'll be sharing it, and we're working with entities like NCAI, NAFOA, regional organizations, and we really, again, want to ensure that tribes are aware of this opportunity and that they're successful in addressing their divide when it comes to broadband within their communities. So the upcoming webinars will be on hot topics, such as some of the permitting coming up, and what that looks like. Some of the eligible costs. Will also be going through and that entire application process and all of the forms that are required within that, just to have a step-by-step guide, and that so tribal entities can kind of follow along with that. When I do send this a PDF of this of this slide deck over, you can view those webinar opportunities just by clicking the link on this slide. Next slide, please. The next thing, and this is where we're at right now, a call for merit reviewers. We're seeking volunteers with expertise to look at some of these applications. With the eligible entities that I named, we have 574 federally recognized tribes. We have, because ANCs are eligible for that, we have over 100 corporations. So we're in the possibility of receiving, over 700 applications. So we're really looking for some of those merit reviewers. Some of you on this line who have that subject matter expertise. If you're interested in being a merit reviewer, there's information here of who to contact. If you'd like more information on that, feel free to email me to share with your networks. Again, it's going to be really important to have folks that know our communities and that can read language and not be additional barriers for our tribes when it comes to some of this. You all are familiar with the needs for your specific tribes and tribes in general, and what some of those solutions may look like. If you're wondering, and we've got questions so far, that, can I be a merit reviewer if I'm also, a part of a tribe who's applying? And the answer is yes. You would just be a merit reviewer for a region outside of your own. So for instance, if you're in California, you wouldn't be reviewing your own application. Indian country is small, we know that, so you're probably still aware of any application that you're reviewing in that sense, but we won't have you review, your own application or even applications in your region. Next slide. All right. So there's also, as we all know, or as I hope that we all know, and that we got in our applications, there's the $20 billion Treasury Fund from the American Rescue Plan that supports some of these same entities. With that, we are allowing, and there will be an opportunity to receive these funds with that from Treasury. So we know for our reporting and things like that, that right now tribes did it, and due to tribal leaders, we're in a really good place. Tribes secured over $38 billion in the last act, and are finally, I wouldn't say finally, but being recognized alongside states and local governments in that sense. And I commend all of you tribal leaders and advocates for your work on that over the last year to secure these funds. So we know with that comes a lot of reporting, a lot of great opportunities, but also we know that all tribes don't have the same capacity as we would often like. So we want to make it as simple as possible in that regard. For planning purposes, again, in those duplications, we'll be talking and doing some webinars about what does that look like to apply and to put these different opportunities together in a cohesive application. Next slide, please. All right, so that concludes my presentation. I hope I can answer some of the Q&As. As I said, I'm in my 8th day with NTIA. So if I can't answer something, I'm going to be honest, but I will certainly get back to you all with that. So Chairwoman, thank you so much for the opportunity, and I defer to you.
I really appreciate this excellent presentation. It is critical that we remain connected. I cannot tell you enough, as you mentioned, how COVID has exacerbated the need to remain connected, be it for health, school, mental wellness, and work. So important. So I'll open it up for questions or comments from any committee members. And I know we're winding down on time.
There is no hands raised, Chair Pinto.
Perfect, thank you. Any public questions or comments?
I don't see any hands raised, Chair Pinto.
Excellent. So Nicholas, we look forward to receiving that information for you, and the money's here. Grab it, and there's a no match, and I really appreciate that, because that seems to be one of the obstacles for many grant opportunities for tribes, and so that's wonderful, and I appreciate the presentation.
And Chairwoman Pinto, we'll load the PowerPoint onto the working group website, and also I'll distribute it to the e-list as well as an attachment in the PDF form, so it doesn't clog inboxes.
Great, thanks, Jane. I apologize, working members, we're just going to go over probably a few more minutes past 12, because the last item is item 8, which is Mike Connolly and Matt Horton, and they're going to update the working group on the interregional tribal transportation strategy. Mike, Matt.
Thank you, Chairwoman. For those of you who aren't familiar with this update that we're doing to the ITTS, it's part of the MOU that was signed between Southern California Tribal Chairmen's Association and San Diego Association of Governments in summer of last year. And with that MOU, there was funding to provide more support for tribes to participate in the regional planning. One component of that was to update the ITTS, and tribal chairmen hired Kimley Horn as the consultant to do the update. Kimley Horn was involved in the original ITTS development, and as the project manager for Kimley Horn, we got Matt Horton, who himself was personally a part of the original ITTS development. So with that, I will turn it over to Matt Horton to go through where we're at on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike, and thank you, Chairwoman Pinto. Can I just do the mandatory verify that everyone can see the presentation, please?
We can see. Thank you, Matt.
Awesome. Thank you. So I wanted to start by thanking many of you who are on this call for your time. We conducted one-on-one interviews with many of the tribes, conducted 10 interviews in total to take a closer look at the needs assessment and the inventory of projects that was identified in the previous ITTS. Through these interviews, we have identified more than 60 new projects to be added to the inventory, while modifying an additional 10 projects. Also very exciting, especially in the context of the 5 big moves, there are several new project types that have emerged as new technologies have been incorporated into transportation systems. We've also gone through and reviewed documents that have been completed since the publishing of the previous ITTS. These included safety plans, long-range transportation plans, resiliency plans, et cetera, and lifted additional projects out of those documents to make sure that this ITTS update is inclusive of as many of the new projects that have been identified recently. We are also just wrapping up the tail end of our updating cost estimates. Many of you may have noticed there's been substantial inflation, unfortunately, when it comes to construction-related activities. And we want to make sure that when we identify need in the ITTS, that we're giving an accurate financial perspective to each of the individual projects. So as we start to look forward, we will be digitizing everything that we've heard in the needs assessment interviews, both in a GIS geospatial format, but also in the interactive filtering tool model that some of you may remember as part of the previous strategy. Many of those projects will receive the same sorting criteria that the previous projects received, things like indications of project type, whether they would be eligible for various grant funding programs, et cetera. One of the really great comments that we heard as we were conducting the needs interviews, needs assessments, were the importance of the phase that a certain or particular project is in when considering the project inventory. So this could be anything, a project could be in the planning phase, right? It's a fresh idea that still needs additional feasibility. Could be in preliminary engineering, or actually there are some projects that are in the inventory right now that are fully designed and shovel ready. And by identifying the phase that any of the individual projects are in, we can better position and better understand which grant opportunities and funding sources align well with particular projects. Because of the breadth of the inventory and the number of projects, we will be attempting to enlist the help of all of our partners at the individual tribes to assess what phase some of these projects are actually in. We'll also be coordinating with the agency partners to make sure that we're making our best educated guess as to where in the project development timeline each of them are. But ultimately, the goal of getting this variable incorporated in the inventory will be very valuable moving into the future, securing those outside funding sources. And a little bit broader of a horizon, what we can be looking forward to as we wrap up the technical update of the ITTS, specifically related to that inventory. We'll move to a phase where we'll want to take a long, hard look at the strategy actions that were identified in the previous ITTS document. These are things like interagency coordination, how to pursue grant funding, how things will be logistically tracked moving forward. We've learned a lot over the last 5 years, and I believe that there are many ways that those strategy actions can be updated to better reflect what has worked and modified to increase the opportunities for us to secure funding moving into the future. So be on the lookout. We're currently working with SCTCA and SANDAG to identify the best date for something that will closely resemble a workshop. We'll have as many tribal representatives as possible to brainstorm and kind of use some strum and ideas that we'll create as a project team to finalize what those strategy actions need to look like moving forward. We also want to indicate that there seems to be a pretty strong desire for some sort of process of prioritization, whether it be a top 10 list or early action projects, some sort of indication or list of actions where there seems to be really needed improvements or high opportunity where we as a community can collaborate with one another to get some of those wins in specific areas happening sooner rather than later. So I appreciate all of your time. Thank you for accommodating us going just slightly over on time, and I welcome any questions that you may have about where we are on the ITTS update. Thank you.
Beautiful, Matt, and thank you for time. Are there any member comments or questions for Matt or Mike?
I don't see any hands raised. Chairwoman Menta.
Okay. Any public comments? Any hands raised?
I don't see any hands raised.
I know it. That's what's going on right here. Okay, so if there are no more questions or comments, thank you, Matt, and thank you, Mike. Appreciate the work. So we're going to move on to the last item. It's topics for the next meeting, which is in September. And this is the one where we're going to meet in person. I know previously Viejas has agreed to host, and hopefully Viejas will agree to host in September. Ray, are you on?
Ray is on, and Viejas still extends the offer to host the next in-person meeting.
Awesome, Ray. That's wonderful. So that'll be in September, and I don't think we landed on a specific date yet, Jane.
No, so Chairwoman, the thinking of the EIR that will be released at the end of August, and we'll have a public comment period through the beginning of October. Anytime in September, and I think that's sort of a question on the table is, if the focus is the EIR, what is the best Wednesday in September to do that, earlier or later? Perhaps and also just to let you know that the September does have a 5th Friday, which is unusual. So, people may not have, they may be more available on the 29th, which is a 5th Friday, but yeah, 15th, 22nd, or the 29th.
Oh, the 5th Wednesday. Yes. I'm good with the 29th.
So, but also thinking it's also California Indian Day. Is that, that's the end, that's the Friday, the 4th Friday of.
Correct. That's September 24th.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So maybe the 29th would be better.
Yes. That works perfect.
Okay.
Members, does that work for you guys?
Silence.
Sorry, I had to look at my calendar. This is Shasta. That works for Paula. And may I make a suggestion or actually ask for something on the agenda?
Yes.
I would, at that point, our tribal transportation and climate adaptation plan will be completed, and I would be delighted if I could have the opportunity to present on that to the working group.
Oh, we would love to hear about it, Shasta.
You just want to hear me talk because I'm so cool.
Well, because it's your vocabulary. It's just
my what?
Vocabulary. So.
Okay, I'll be sure to bring all my my $5 words.
Thank you. Any other member would like to add anything to the agenda? Do so now.
Chairwoman.
Yes, sir.
Chairwoman, so I think I mentioned one before that if we have this in-person meeting, we should all come in our motorcycle jackets. And to be honest with you, mine is in Arizona, so I won't be there with my jacket on.
Oh, dang it. Well, then I'm not going to wear mine either. I better get dressed up. I haven't dressed up all year. Okay. So if there are no other comments or any other additions, we'll see you September 29th. Thank you, everybody, for your time today. Have a safe and happy 4th of July holiday weekend. Come back to us. No drinking and driving. And take care of each other. Okay?
Bye, everyone.
Take care.
Bye,
Take
everyone.
care. Thank you.
Thanks. Take care, everyone.